Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
This time, we're looking at a story that really shook the Jamaican TikTok community.
Right.
It's the shooting of TikToker Niah, and it was particularly shocking because it happened right on a live stream.
Yeah, that's right.
So she was actually online and playing a game when this happened.
That's what's so unsettling about this whole case is that it happened during, what is normally a fun, lighthearted activity.
Yeah.
People are connecting online, they're playing a game, and then this violence just erupts and intrudes into that space.
Yeah, it's like it really kind of takes away any illusion of safety that you might feel, when you're online.
Absolutely.
Like you're just in your own world having fun, and then suddenly reality hits.
Yeah, and in this case, we have an eyewitness account from the TikToker who was actually playing the game with Niah, and the article we're looking at quotes him as saying, "Mi ka believe say," this really happened, and that's, translated to, "I can't believe this really happened." And what's even more telling is that he initially thought the shooting was a prank.
Oh, God.
So you can imagine just the psychological whiplash of going from, thinking this is a joke to suddenly realizing that something truly horrific has happened.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that would do to you psychologically to witness something like that.
It's definitely traumatic to witness violence in any form.
Right.
But there's something particularly disturbing about seeing it unfold live, especially when you're directly involved. This isn't like watching a news report where you have some distance.
Right.
This is immediate, this is visceral, and it's something that can leave very deep psychological scars.
So you're not only processing the shock of the event itself,
right?
You're also dealing with the fact that you were right there virtually when it happened.
Exactly, and I think that's what makes this incident so relevant to all of us.
Right.
Because we live in a world where the lines between our online and offline lives are becoming increasingly blurred. And this case really raises some important questions about the psychological impact of online violence.
Like, how do we cope with these experiences?
Yeah, how do we protect our mental well-being in a digital landscape that can be incredibly connecting, but also shockingly brutal.
And then you add to that the whole whirlwind of speculation and accusations that happened online after the shooting.
Oh, absolutely.
People were pointing fingers trying to figure out who was to blame.
Right, and a lot of that was directed at another TikToker, Figure It Out.
Right.
Who had some public disputes with Niah in the past.
Yeah, it's like people were looking for a simple explanation.
Yeah.
For something that was, incredibly tragic and complex.
Right. They wanted to fit it into a narrative that they could understand.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that often means finding someone to blame.
And it's easy to forget that behind those online personas are real people,
Exactly.
And Figure It Out actually denied any involvement. And the article says that he was, really distraught by Niah's death. He even said that he cried when he heard the news.
It's a good reminder for all of us that, even when we're engaging in heated debates or disagreements online, we need to remember that there are real people on the other side of those screens.
Right.
And our words can have a real impact.
It's about having empathy, even when you're, in the middle of an argument.
Absolutely. Empathy should always be our guiding principle.
And speaking of online communities and reactions, it's interesting to see how some of the more prominent figures in the Jamaican TikTok community responded to this tragedy.
Yeah, definitely. We have, dancehall artist Gage, who actually shared his own experiences with Niah.
Right.
And then we have dancehall dancer Dyema, who was quite critical of other TikTokers for remaining silent on the issue.
So it brings up this whole question of, influencer responsibility.
Right.
What is their role in a situation like this?
It's a tough one because on one hand, they have these platforms and these communities, and their voices carry weight, but on the other hand, they're individuals navigating a very public space, and the expectations can be overwhelming.
Especially in a situation like this where emotions running high.
Yeah.
There's this pressure to say the right thing or to say anything at all.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah.
They're trying to balance their own personal feelings with the expectations of their audience.
Right.
And the potential consequences of, speaking out or staying silent.
It's a lot to navigate.
It is, and I think it's important to acknowledge the complexity of their position. It's really striking when you think about it.
Yeah.
Niah's death, it wasn't just a tragedy for her family and friends. it really sent shockwaves through the whole Jamaican TikTok community. I mean, it forced everyone to confront this harsh reality that the digital world, for all its connectivity and entertainment, it's not immune to the dangers of the offline world.
Yeah, it's like that line that we always talk about. Between the digital and the real world, it just got completely erased.
It got ripped away.
And suddenly everyone's having to grapple with these very real-world consequences.
Yeah, and think about it. This wasn't just about violence, you know, like intruding into a digital space.
Right.
It was about the very activities that define these platforms, like becoming intertwined with tragedy.
Right.
I mean, Niah was playing a game.
Yeah.
Something that people do, you know, for connection, for fun.
Yeah.
And it became the backdrop for this horrifying event.
And it makes you think about the impact on the community.
Yeah.
Like, how does a community even begin to process something like this?
That's a question that, you know, researchers are still trying to fully understand.
Okay.
We know that exposure to violence, even online, can have lasting effects on individuals.
Right.
But when it happens within a community, it creates this kind of shared trauma.
So it's not just about individual healing.
No, it's about communal healing as well.
Okay.
And in this case, you know, we see that process unfolding in different ways. There's the grief and the anger, of course.
Yeah.
But there's also, you know, a remarkable display of resilience.
And we see that with...
Yeah, like Gage, for example.
Well,
calling for that charity match in honor of Niah's daughter.
Right.
I mean, that's a testament to the resilience of the community.
it's a way of taking that pain
Yeah.
and channeling it into something positive.
Exactly. It's a way to honor her memory and help her family.
And it really speaks to the unique nature of online communities.
It does.
Because while they can sometimes be, you know, breeding grounds for negativity,
Right.
they can also be incredibly powerful sources of support.
Yeah, when tragedy strikes, people can come together in ways that just weren't possible before.
Right.
They can share information, offer condolences, raise funds.
Demand justice.
Exactly. It's really quite remarkable.
So it's like these online spaces, they have this dual nature.
They do.
There's the potential for harm, but there's also the potential for incredible good.
And that's what makes this incident so compelling.
Yeah.
It forces us to think about, you know, how we can cultivate the positive aspects of these online communities, while at the same time mitigating the risks.
So how do we do that?
Yeah.
What can we do as individuals?
Well, I think it starts with individual accountability.
Yeah.
Each of us making a conscious effort to engage in a more responsible and empathetic way.
So what does that look like in practice?
I mean, it's about being mindful of our words and actions,
Right.
recognizing that they have weight and they can impact others.
Yeah.
It's about challenging misinformation and hate speech when we see it,
Okay.
not being afraid to speak up against injustice, but it's also about being willing to listen
Yeah.
and to understand perspectives that differ from our own,
Right.
and engage in respectful dialogue even when we disagree.
So it's about bringing those same values of empathy and kindness and accountability that
Exactly.
we try to live by in our offline lives.
Yeah, the digital world isn't some separate realm with different rules.
Right.
It's an extension of our society, and we need to treat it as such.
And that brings us to the role of platform providers,
Yes.
like TikTok in this case.
Right.
They have a responsibility to create safe and inclusive spaces for their users,
Absolutely. And that responsibility encompasses a wide range of actions.
such as...
Well, you know, implementing effective content moderation policies,
Okay.
investing in mental health resources for their users.
Right.
They need to be proactive in preventing the spread of harmful content and creating mechanisms for users to report abuse and harassment.
But it's a tough balance, isn't it?
It is.
Like, where do you draw the line between protecting free speech and preventing harm?
It's a constant balancing act, and there's no easy answer.
Right.
But it's a challenge that platforms need to take seriously,
Because the consequences can be devastating,
as we've seen.
as we've seen. Yeah, and they can extend far beyond the digital world.
Exactly. Niah's death is a stark reminder of that.
Yeah.
What happens online can have real-world consequences.
And we all have a role to play in creating a safer and more responsible digital future.
Absolutely.
And it's not just about preventing tragedies.
Right.
It's about creating online spaces where people can connect and create and share without fear,
Right.
where they can find support and build communities that are truly positive and enriching.
I couldn't agree more. This incident has, you know, shaken the Jamaican TikTok community to its core,
It has.
but it's also sparked these really important conversations.
About responsibility.
Yeah, about accountability and the kind of online world we want to create.
And those conversations are essential.
They are.
They might be difficult, but they're necessary if we want to learn from this tragedy.
Right.
And use it as a catalyst for positive change.
As we kind of wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I keep coming back to this one question. I think it's something we should all think about.
Okay.
When we talk about the blurred lines between, the digital world and reality,
Right.
what does this incident tell us about how we see online personas versus real people? It's so easy to get caught up in those carefully curated versions of ourselves that we put online.
Right.
We choose, the perfect filters for our pictures.
Yeah.
We think about every word before we post it. And really what we end up showing is just a highlight reel of our lives, not the full picture.
It's like we forget there are real people behind those usernames and avatars.
Absolutely. And that disconnect, that tendency to kind of dehumanize people online, it can have some very real and often very dangerous consequences.
Yeah, this case really shows that, doesn't it?
It does.
It's a reminder that, our online actions, they have offline impacts.
Right.
Whether it's a comment or a post or a message, these things, they can touch real lives.
They can.
In ways we might not even realize.
It's easy to, get caught up in the heat of the moment online and say things that you would never dream of saying to someone's face.
Yeah.
But those words can still cause real pain and have a lasting impact.
And in Niah's case, we see the ultimate tragic consequence of that disconnect.
Yeah, it's a real wake-up call for all of us to be more mindful
Yeah.
about how we interact with each other online.
To treat each other with the same respect and empathy
Exactly.
that we would offer, in person. But you know what I also find really compelling about this story?
What's that?
Is how it shows the resilience of that Jamaican TikTok community.
Oh, yeah.
Despite this awful event,
Right.
you see people coming together to offer support, to share memories, to demand justice for Niah.
Yeah, and that speaks to the power of community,
It does.
both online and offline.
Even when faced with this tragedy,
Right.
they found a way to connect, to find comfort in their shared grief,
Right.
and to work towards healing together.
A beautiful thing.
It's a reminder that these digital spaces, they can foster real human connection.
Yeah.
And they can be sources of incredible strength and support.
And that's something we should all try to cultivate. In our own online interactions,
Yeah.
we need to bridge that gap between the online and offline worlds. And remember that whether our actions are big or small, they have ripple effects.
That extend beyond our screens.
Exactly.
So as we log off and go back to our own, online lives,
Yeah.
let's remember Niah's story, not just as a tragedy,
Right.
but as a call to action.
To be more thoughtful, more compassionate, more responsible online.
Absolutely. Let's make sure the ripples we create
Yeah.
are ones of kindness, respect, and empathy.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Of course.
It was a tough conversation,
Yeah.
but an important one.
It was.
And to our listeners, we hope this has given you all some food for thought as you navigate, this ever-changing world of the internet.
Absolutely.
Stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay human.